Hi, I'm Amy Rush-Imber at Floor Covering Weekly, and I'm here with Scott Humphrey from the WFCA. Scott, how are you?
Doing wonderful. How about you?
Very good. So we're here at Surfaces in Las Vegas, and how's the show been for you?
It's been good. I actually like the pace. We're down a little bit as we expected, but much higher than we were in June. And I think that's what the real comparison could be, because it really is about the industry coming back out together. I like the ability to actually stop and talk to somebody without having to hand them off to someone else because the flow is so dramatic. And I've talked to many of the anchors here, the Shaws, the Mohawks, and they've said, we may be down a little bit, but the people we need to talk to, the key customers, they're here.
Very intentional meetings.
Yes,
sure.
Exactly.
Now, you all have a theme in going into 2022, right? Yeah. Reset, reconnect, renew.
Yeah.
Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, coming out of the pandemic, it's all about really starting over. And it's funny, I'm talking about this in a moment at what we call a fireside chat. But when you think about resetting, I think about you reset a phone, you get to go back and start from scratch. Reconnecting, you could look at it as reconnecting to the people around you, and certainly that's a big part of this show. Reconnecting to us is more about reconnecting to your purpose. So Mark Twain said, two very important days in your life. The first is the day you're born, the second is the day you realize why. And I think for many of us, our world has been shaken over the last 2 years, year and a half, 2 years. And we're beginning to ask ourselves, okay, why was I doing that in the first place? And is that the best way to do it? And so when we talked about reconnect, that's it. The final one, the renew, is really, in my mind, not about going back to when things were good. I think renewing as a child. A child, it's like, many people hear renew and they think re-old. I want to go back to the way it was when it was good, but you can't live in the past. It's a great place to learn. It's a terrible place to live. And so for us, renew is about reevaluating your forward direction. Think about children, man, they're passionate, they're growing every day, they're amazed at everything around them, they're not haunted by a past, and so we're really trying to get people's mind frame and focus towards success in 2022, and we feel like everything's falling in line. We expect a very good year again for the industry, so we want to be a part of that.
And you mentioned the last couple of years, very different. One of the things we've been talking to people about is lessons learned from that, and how you're going to use what you've learned to operate differently going forward.
Yeah.
Can you talk about that, especially when it's your communications with retailers? What are some of the things that maybe were learned over the last 2 years that will carry you forward?
I'll tell you, the first lesson learned, especially at the retail level, is what looks bad is not always bad. I had a lot of people call me at the beginning of the pandemic, and several of them closed their businesses. They were so afraid of what was going to come. Had they waited 3 months, they would realize the second half of the year might have been the best 6 months they'd ever had. And so we've learned that we have to stop and evaluate. We've got to be willing to pause before we make a decision, not simply to react. We've learned the value of relationship. Zooms are one thing, but they're not relational. They're very one-dimensional, and so we've learned that getting out like this, it's the best thing about this show, and kudos to Informa. I'm sure there was a lot of pressure for them to say, no, you can't do this, there's mask mandates and everything. We've got to do this. We have to get back to a norm, because this could happen every year. There could be another variant. Are we going to shut down every year when it happens? No, we need the face time.
I know your members really leaned on you a lot during that period of time, and you've also done some very proactive things. The Floor Covering Education Foundation to address the installation crisis. Can you talk a little about some of those things, initiatives that you've taken during this last couple of years?
Yeah, it was crazy for us, because a lot of people say, okay, we were shut down. We were probably busier than we've ever been. We took the opportunity to invest in things in the industry. So a nonprofit, what does a nonprofit do? Our goal should be to find the trouble spots in the industry and solve them. Well, the biggest trouble spot, as you know, because the media has done a wonderful job of communicating this installation crisis, not just in the last 2 years since we coined it as that, but over the last 50, when we show what's the biggest headache that you have to a retailer, over and over, the lack of quality installers, lack of installers at all. So we put that $1 million up to get the FCEF launched, and thank goodness for some strong anchors within the industry that came alongside us and contributed as well. That will always be our focus until the paradigm shifts. So right now the focus is how do we scholarship people and get them in and make sure education is not a barrier to them entering the industry. Eventually we hope that the focus becomes how do we help those that are already in the industry be better at what they do. Obviously FCIF has been a focus during this time. There's been more need. There are a lot of people not knowing where to turn, and we're still looking for ways to communicate the fact that FCIF is out there and we're willing to help and we have money to help. And if you contributed to this industry, we want to give back to you.
And it was great. You were able to have that event this year.
Yeah,
You know,
we did.
Wonderful.
There's nothing like it. I mean, you at the gala, you understand that getting those people that compete every day, they suddenly walk in the door and they're all friends.
There's
There's
a lot
no
of hard-
competition because we have a higher focus. We're focused on helping people.
Well, thank you so much.
Thank you so much.